Hi everybody, my name is Valentina. I am a teacher, a mother, a trainer, a coach, a psychologist, and I'm really happy to start this series of podcasts for education on behalf of the education in Romania. We are going to have speakers from different parts of the world, and today I have with me a wonderful lady from Great Britain. And this is the reason for which I am speaking in Romanian, in English. It's going to be fun. This is what I would like, first of all, for this podcast. So, Conscious Growth is the name of the podcast. Conscious Growth in Education, with the aim of supporting the needs of the parents and the teachers nowadays, with the aim of connecting the education to the heart, connecting ourselves with our heart, and somehow coming down from our minds to our hearts and connecting ourselves and the education with the deeper source that is within us. În campania Creștere, conștientă în educație, avem alături de noi un prim partener extraordinar, extrem de sufletist, compania Noarc. Compania Noarc Electric este o companie cu activitate la nivel mondial care dezvoltă, produce și distribuie echipamente electrotehnice. Compania Noarc Electric este parte a unui grup multinațional cu peste 25.000 de angajați. Cu produse de o calitate excepțională, Noarc Electric aduce fiabilitate și performanță acolo unde este nevoie. Fiecare proiect beneficiază de soluții electrice sigure, moderne, eficiente, care susțin nu doar construcții, ci și visuri. Educația este fundamentală formării unor comunități puternice. Drept urmare, Noarc Electric și-a luat angajamentul de a o susține prin proiecte diverse și pe termen lung. Ne face o deosebită plăcere să-i avem alături de noi pe cei de la Noarc Electric în acest proiect inovativ, în acest proiect care să inspire și să construiască visuri, acest podcast Creștere conștientă în educație, Conscious Growth in Education. So, saying this, I would like to say a big welcome to Jeanette.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I can't speak Romanian, so we'll have to speak English.
Yeah. So that's why the introduction was in English, as you are the first guest
Ta-da!
in this podcast.
Thank you.
So first of all,
number one,
always number one.
Always.
Yeah, it was an intuition because we talk about consciousness and about conscious growth in education, and it was an intuition that I had a couple of days ago to have the first podcast and to have it with you and to offer this opportunity of connecting ourselves, connecting the world with the education, connecting you to the teachers and the parents from Romania and from all over the world. So I'm truly grateful for you for saying yes. And I hope that it will be an inspirational and an inspired discussion about us, about our souls, about education and children and parents. So, first of all, I would like to say to everybody that you are an international speaker, you are a trainer, you are a mother, and your experience comes from all these fields.
Yes,
if I can say so.
I've been a teacher for 30 years.
Yeah.
And I have wrote a lot of books, and I am consistently inspired by children to be a better teacher and adult because we are responsible for children internationally.
Yeah, I totally agree with this. I mean, it's not only about the children in Romania, but it's about children and education and parenting all over the world. Everything is connected.
Yes, it is. And years ago, it used to
High
be
vibration.
a little bit different around the world.
Yeah.
But now we all have the same problems that we need to come together to say, this is our problem, this is our problem. And then we can have the solutions together as well.
Yeah. When I thought about the name of this podcast, and I had this inspiration of calling it Conscious Growth, and conscious growth in education, I was thinking very much at the fact that we as teachers and as parents, we need to be connected with ourselves, and we need to be better people ourselves in order to be better teachers and better parents for the little ones. What is for you conscious education?
Conscious education is accepting that everything in life is fluid. Your emotions are fluid. So is life. And if we do the same thing that we have always done, then, the famous Zig Ziglar phrase, we're always going to get what we've always got. And as adults, do we expect children to be the same as we were as children? My children, when I had them, didn't have technology like it is now. So they had much more play, much more time outside. But now, I was just saying today, children don't have those things anymore. So to be conscious of that is, something has changed. It has good points, but for childhood, we can see the change, and to carry on just doing what we've always done isn't working. It really isn't working. And so to be conscious of that is to accept that things are fluid and change, and let's adapt and let's find different ways to make it work, because we can.
Yeah. Do you think, Jeanette, that a teacher or a parent is conscious from the beginning? For example, a new mom, is she conscious about the education that she should give to her child from the beginning?
No, I don't think you are. I don't think you are, because I don't think that you can prepare. So when you first have a baby, you think, I am not going to do this, and I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And then you have a baby, and then you think, oh my goodness, what happened? Right?
Yeah.
And for me, I unconsciously definitely had 4 children very close together. So my children are 27, 26, 25, 24. So one day I woke up and I was like, oh my goodness, I've got 4 children. And you have to, I don't think you are conscious, because I think every parent who has a human baby doesn't understand how difficult that is all the way through. Yeah. And I think in all societies, traditionally, we say, oh yeah, I'm doing great. But actually it's hard. It's so hard. And nobody says that.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, for me, as I'm also a mother of 3, it was the first milestone, if I can say so, in good parenting. It was when I understood that I can take a break and I can breathe and I won't be blamed by my children or by the people around. That is normal, and that I'm doing well enough no matter what I'm doing, and I am the best version of a mom that I can be at that time and with that child. And for me, this was liberating, really.
I think for me, it was when I realized that I don't have to do it all perfectly, because I spent so many years, trying to, get them all to look beautiful and have their hair done. And, and then one would run out in the garden and dip its head in the mud. And then I'd be like, oh, now I got to start again, Yeah. And I think we have to give ourselves credit I wish somebody said this to me. I give yourself credit every night when they're all in bed and they're all asleep. Somebody once said, go and look at them asleep. No, go and look in the mirror and give yourself a round of applause for the day that you have achieved, because it's a lot.
Yeah. Is there a time when a parent becomes conscious or starts conscious parenting?
I think the moment that you watch this video, right, could be the time. I don't know. I don't know, because for each person it's different. But I think that if I was watching this video and I wasn't conscious, and in conscious I mean connected with who am I, what do I want, you know, because ultimately to me, and my children are older and so are two of yours, you have this gift and you rush to get it to the next stage. And all of a sudden they get to, I would say 25, I'm going to say, okay? Because I thought it would be like 16. It was 25. They get to 25 and they're like, hey, stop being my mom. Not stop being my mother, but stop being my mom. Stop telling me what to do, washing my clothes, you know? And for some of my children, they oh no, still wash my clothes, still. And so then you have to say, actually, this isn't, you need to go. And I think that's hard. Nobody prepares you for that.
Yeah. When did you start to take care of yourself? Because as a parent of 4 with very little time between themselves,
probably not until I when I set up my own business, I had to take care of myself, because I was running my business, running my family, and there was no space, no gaps for meditation, or, you know, people used to say, you know, you should be going to the gym. I was like, really? When am I going to the gym? And, you know, we have all these things that society tells us we should do, but some people really just don't have space. So probably not until they were teenagers, like late teens, and they started to be more independent. But I was still cooking their teas and, you know, we said in Romania, but and looking after their well-being. And I think, so probably, how old am I? 52 now. Probably not until my late 40s could I actually care for myself. But I wish somebody had said that to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because there were times when I was just absolutely exhausted with myself, with my life. And I didn't ever look for opportunities to expand myself as a person.
Yeah. Because I was thinking now at the parents with very young children, then probably they think, oh my goodness, I have so much left until my child will be 25. But actually, it's important for us to realize that nowadays, with the support that society is given and the family and the friends, we can start to take care of ourselves and to love ourselves a bit more. Is this correct? Do you think it's correct? We can start, or are we waiting until a child will be a teenager or 20?
I was my oldest daughter is a teacher now. So this morning we were talking about her class and texting and voice notes, and I made her some videos. And I said to her, you need to, as the teacher, to model this practice that I was talking about. And she said, oh yeah, okay. And she thought I was just sending it for her to do with her class. But I said to her, you need to be the model. And I think if I parented again, I would work more on myself and regulating myself, you know, because I think since the pandemic that we as humans, all humans, are dysregulated. We don't feel safe anymore. Yeah. Because we came to 2020 and all of a sudden the whole world, every single human being stopped. And whether you enjoyed the pandemic, I don't know if anybody did, maybe some crazy people did, but you had to change and you weren't safe.
Yeah.
And that was very scary. And I think we don't talk about that, for example. And so if you're watching this as a parent or a teacher and you feel dysregulated, you feel, I think the feeling for me is here.
Yeah.
And I think we don't talk about this enough in terms of who we are.
Yeah.
But if you have that feeling, mine's here. Where do you have your feeling when you're dysregulated?
I usually have it here. But it was interesting because I did this exercise in the conference with the audience in various cities around Romania, and people were feeling the pain or the anger in different places of their body. And actually what was good to understand is that we are different. However, it's important to understand that it's okay if you feel it. Some people differ in their head, throat, in their hands, because they felt. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's important to understand that it's in our body and to be conscious about it and to see how we can support that feeling.
I think that's the first start to being conscious as an adult. I will joke about children later, but for an adult, it's simply stopping, breathing, and just saying, where am I feeling this?
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes when I was responsible for my family and my business, I would have this pain in my shoulders here because I was carrying everything myself.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah, and it feels heavy, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that by talking it out, by saying that this is how I am here, this is what I feel here, you know, then that gives the other person permission to say, well, actually, I feel it. I feel it in my biceps. I don't know what it could be. And then once you feel it, talk it out, then that's when you know that you're dysregulated. But I think most people are pre-conscious where they are just trying to get through the day, hanging on. And you might have a feeling, but you just ignore it because you push it down because you've got to get on with the day. You've got to get on with the day. You've got to get your children to school. You've got to do that. Yeah. But actually, that's the permission that you're giving in this podcast is stop, breathe, check it out.
Yeah. Is this, in your opinion, because I know what I would answer. I'll tell you after.
Tell me.
In your opinion, is this good for the children to know if we have anxiety and where we feel it, in where is in our body? Is
children, as in parents and teachers saying I'm anxious?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think, it depends on the age of the child. I think you have to be very careful because I think that very young children, I would say even up to teenage perhaps, and not so, they can use words. We use words. We were doing it yesterday at nursery, you know, happy, I'm excited. But do they know? I think for me, and I'd be interested to know your answer, is I think we are better to teach children how to regulate and in the breath work. And you can do this from so young. Yeah. Meditation, breath work, movement, my massive thing, movement. But I think it's very difficult we ask a lot of children when we ask them to make a decision or to tell us. A child is the most honest person up until around the age of 8, right? They are so honest that if they don't feel something, they'll tell you. If they don't like what you're doing, they'll tell you. Yeah. You know? Yeah. But I don't know, what would you say?
I think it's important to say it However, I will take in consideration the age of the child.
Yeah.
I mean, the little ones, they don't need a lot of big words. Let's put it that way. But I think it will help them to see that they are also normal, because somebody else feels uncomfortable or they feel something. The children may not say, I have anxiety, I'm afraid or something. They may say that they feel something. And actually by asking them, where does he feel it, their body? I think especially this generation, we are helping this generation to connect with the body, to connect the mind with the body, because a lot of them, they are disconnected because of technology. And they don't realize that their body is doing things, is feeling various emotions, and it will help them in a way to feel the same like the adult on one hand, that also the adult is a human being. You don't need to be perfect if you are a teacher or a parent. It's okay to acknowledge this and actually to share to a certain extent. For example, I'll just say something. I learned in therapy that it's okay for me to cry when my children are in front of me. And I learned this after the age of 40.
I'm glad, because I've cried a lot.
Yeah.
Cried in front of
You know
everybody.
why? Because I learned it was such a pressure to be a perfect mom, a perfect daughter, a perfect sister, and the society put so much pressure on this perfectionism that I was controlling all this. And when my daughters saw that, I had to tell them that I am okay, because they were worried that I'm not okay. And to tell them that it is something normal, and yes, I am crying, but I am going to be okay. And then they were content, not happy, but they respected that space, and they thought,
I think the thing is safe. As well is about processing your emotions, because I don't particularly think that me telling my class of 30 children, I have got anxiety or I feel scared, because you're the adult and you're responsible. You don't want to transfer those negative moments.
True.
But in the same token, saying, I'm excited, I'm so excited, I'm so happy, so that they can transfer the positive to understand. But the other thing as well is if a child is crying, it takes 90 seconds to process an emotion. So I learned in therapy, if we're having a therapy off, I learned that anger can be a positive emotion, that we all see anger as negative, perhaps from our childhoods. Mine is anger to me signified rage, if you were ever angry. So I'm never angry, I'm always suppressing that. Whereas in therapy, it's actually healthy to be angry, because then you understand what you don't like, what makes you, why are you annoyed? But then it's good to remember when children are expressing emotions, allow them, because it takes 90 seconds for a child to process that emotion, and then it's out. But if you suppress it, and we all know about TikTok tells us, right? A suppressed emotion causes a lot of your problems as an adult, because you haven't expressed it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to go back a little to sharing with the children, you were saying that the children that we have now are different than the children that were around us when we were children, or then
even children 5 years ago.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And that's you've touched on it. It's technology and safety, right? And so, for example, when I went to your nursery today, I was kind of giggling to myself, and I know why, because this is the same in the UK. You had safety foam up the banister of the outside stairs, and it made me laugh, because I thought, wow, now we even keep you safe on the rail, right? And I understand why, but we have become so safe with children You know, today I was demonstrating to teachers, running, just running with the toddlers, with the 1, 2, 3s, and we were all running, and a toddler will fall over, but if a toddler falls over, everything was super safe, right? But when the toddler fell over, everybody was like, but the toddler wasn't bothered. They just were like, oh yeah, I'm down again, right? And back up. Yeah. Because that's how you learn to walk. Yeah. And we have made children so safe that we put foam on the banister. Yeah. But we give them a phone, we give them a device, and we give them the most unsafe world to access. And that's what scares me most. Yeah. That we have these super safe children who are not going up a banister. I'm only joking about that. Yeah. But we're doing that to them. But then here, have a device in the whole world. Everything, all the scary things, you know,
are available.
To you.
Okay, so the children are different. Yeah. Now let's talk about the children that are not exposed to the technology, and then we'll also touch on this aspect because we talk about conscious education and conscious parenting. So the children that are not being exposed to the technology, let's say a child that is born in this era, it's past 5 years, let's put it that way. Do you think that they are different than the ones before? Do you think that they are more conscious, more aware, that they have a different potential? Let's
if
start
they've
from
had
scratch.
no technology.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that percentage would be so small. Well, I know the percentage.
Yeah, I know. But let's talk about the potential of a child in this.
I think when you're in the classroom, if you have a child, we call it smartphone childhood and not smartphone childhood. So a child without a smartphone would present differently because they would be more articulate, they would be more alive in their brain, in their imagination. They wouldn't be talking, please can I draw Sonic? Like, you know. Yeah. Today I read a story and I said, we're going to go and draw the favourite part of our story. Somebody said, I'm drawing Elsa. And I was like, is Elsa, was she in the story? You know? And years ago, before technology, television came. When I first started teaching, I was 18 years old, and television came. And I had 5 and 6 year olds, and we were drawing. And I said, let's draw about our weekend. I was very boring then. Let's draw about the weekend. And, I was doing about worms, right? And so we were all wriggling on the floor being worms. And then we went to draw worms. And I would say in the class, 80% of the children drew sharks. And I was like, why are we drawing sharks? And Jaws, the movie, had been on the television the night before. And that was the first time I saw a device affect a child. Before that, children could speak better, they had more imagination, and now I think the percentage is small, but children who don't access technology at all, including, I'm going to include television, they would present so differently in the classroom. Yeah,
because you hear from parents, and actually I did notice there are children, babies that will learn quicker than babies 10 years ago. Babies that will hold their head quicker, that will be more present, that will be more curious. So definitely they come with a certain potential, Like they are more conscious, more present, more aware than children 10 years ago. So we see a progression in abilities. However, like you are saying, introducing technology, this steals away from a child that is being conscious, doesn't it?
Yeah, and why do they need technology? I understand, and I have a device myself, and all the wonderful things means you can access other people. You found me via YouTube, all of this wonderful stuff. But to give a child a device from birth in the UK, 49% of 0 to 2 year olds have a device. Like, and I make a joke, I'm like, when they're born, do they just, and there's an advert, right? A Google advert where the baby comes out and the surgeon gives him a device and he cuts his own umbilical cord, right? And it's funny, but it's not. Because what we see now, children have so much more potential, is so much more information, so much more we as parents and adults have this whole world at our fingertips. But a human child needs the basics to make their brain work, to be more academic post 7 years old. The only one thing realistically they need more than ever is movement.
Yeah.
And that device makes them quiet. They then, and I can understand it because when technology came into my house, it was an Xbox or something like that. My boys, who were like crazy, would sit for hours and hours on this Xbox, and I'd be like, right, come on, we're going out, you know, and no, don't make me go out. And I'd be like, I want to play, I want to play on this thing.
That's not playing, let's go.
And I always remember when they were like, I think they must have been about 14, 15, they were like, Mum, we need cod. Now, I thought cod was fish. And I was like, you need a cod? Like a fish? Like, where are we going to put this cod? And they were like, no, Mum, it's a game. And this was this Call of Duty. And, you know, that this is they probably would have been better with a cod than a fish or going fishing.
Yeah.
But, you know, that was for me when it started to change, because I still don't know, because my generation didn't have that. But now, what will we see it all the time, where children come in after a weekend and they like this.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like a zombie.
Yeah, you see them, don't you? You see the difference between
the
the
eyes
child that
are
has
open,
been,
and they are.
Yeah.
And they also, when you are the teacher, I'm very lively, very, very interactive, and they're like that. Because all of a sudden, they've come off the 2D into the 3D, and their brain is like, what is going on? She's singing, she's dancing, it's real. She expects us to move. And people say that. I watch educators as well. One in particular last year, they had 39 children in the class. And she said, right, we're going to do some movement. And I was like, yes, brilliant. And so on the board, on the whiteboard, she puts up a video of these dancers doing the doing the moves. And I was like, right, okay, I can do that. You know, I'd rather do it myself. But so I got up and she was looking at me like this, and they watched them move. They watched them
because
move.
this is what they knew.
Because she just wanted them to be quiet. Sorry if you watch it. It's true.
Yeah.
And I was just like, so the next day, I went home, I had a sleep because I'm conscious, and I thought, no, I'm not doing this, because just sitting, yes, they'll do it, but it isn't doing them any good whatsoever.
Yeah.
So the next day I went in, she started to do I said, no, turn it off. That's it. We're not having any board all day. We're just going to be me. I'm going to be the board. And the children were just so lively, interactive. There was much more imagination. We went outside. We were being like dragons. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, yeah, I did see the difference. And I was like, no more boards, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's too much for them.
Yeah. I was reading in the book that you offered me in the Anxious Generation about the way in which the brain actually changes. And it changes from being exploratory, it changes to a way of functioning like in defense, because it's being bombarded with so much information that actually it doesn't want to explore anymore. And it changes the whole way in which it processes information. So everything that comes to a child that is using technology actually is like like a bombardment,
Yes.
it's like, okay, what is going to happen now?
And then what does that do to your nervous system?
Yeah, exactly. It's always in this fear, in this anxiety, like what will happen next, and the whole body is
and you know what scares me the most is and I've seen this in my own circle of friends, right? So 8-year-old girls on social media and doing skincare routines. And my beautician, which is okay for a 52-year-old woman to have one, she said, I was on holiday with my friends in the holidays, and I loved her 8-year-old. She was doing a skincare routine, and I was like, you could come and work for me. And I said, so unconsciously, she's thinking that's great. I said, don't you think that's scary? And she said, why? And I said, because what did you know at 8? And she said, I said, did you know you soap your face, then you toner, then you moisturize? And she was like, oh, no. And I said, and you know what's scary? More scary? That 8-year-old thinks her face isn't perfect.
Yeah.
Just as it is, she thinks she needs to do these treatments.
Yeah, yeah.
And I find, and another friend, she's a grandmother, her 5-year-old said to her 5-year-old granddaughter said, I need makeup. And so she thought, oh, I'll buy like Barbie makeup. You know when you used to wear your mom's makeup.
Yeah.
And she said, no, I want this. And she showed her on Amazon, right? So she showed her on Amazon this adult makeup set, and she said, but Nana, I need a mascara. An adult mascara.
Yeah.
And I was like, so a 5-year-old girl now knows that her face isn't beautiful without makeup.
Yeah.
And that's what these are the harmful parts that we're choosing to ignore, because it's easy when you're with children just to give them a device and then they're quiet.
Yeah, yeah. However, if we talk about conscious education, this means that we are reflective. Yeah, we think at what we are doing as teachers and as parents, and we see how we can improve with the children. So, in your opinion, do you think conscious education is about connection? And how valuable is that connection? Because again, if we talk about children that are using technology, they are less connected than the children that are not using technology. But in this environment, because yes, we live surrounded by technology, is connection still a value? Is it still important for a child?
We're human. It doesn't matter how much technology. I always make a joke, say, if you're teaching human children, right, because we are, then this is the truth. This is the science. You can't disagree with science, because if you disagree with science, then you're just wrong, okay? Yeah. But the truth is, the only way a child can develop is through movement, through talk, through human connection. You know, Gabor Mate, who is a great one, says that the cure for addiction is not for the addiction itself, but for human connection, because what causes addiction is pain. Yeah. And I think the same for these children. How many unconscious people who hopefully have put their phones down during this, except if they're watching this on it, is now saying, oh, I always think about when I got a phone, I was probably 31, and it was like a Nokia bouncy phone because I had all the children. But I was so disconnected from my family because I had this new thing and people could message me all the time, and I lived in Cyprus and my family lived in England, so my mum would message me all. I was like, whoa, this is great. But even research shows that when you're having a conversation, if your phone is just on the table between us, you are less vulnerable to me because of the phone is there, because you're not there. You're there in the phone.
Connected with the phone, waiting
so
for
something. Waiting or thinking, is there something better than this? Is there something, has somebody messaged me something juicy? I don't know what that would be. But, and I think today, my PA sent me a video of a baby that's 6 months old, and people might have seen this on the internet, where the baby is watching the phone and the parent takes it away and the baby has a massive screaming meltdown, and as soon as the phone's put back, the baby's calm.
Yeah.
And so as parents, we have to become conscious. As educators, we have to become conscious, because the children coming into the classroom are living a whole different life. Mm-hmm. But as parents, we hear the cry now. I think 2024 was the first year that we heard that phones weren't right. You know, Jonathan Haidt's anxious generation. And all of a sudden now we have a responsibility, a bigger responsibility to say, do you know what? I don't like taking it off my child. Yeah. And they have lots of ideas and concepts in his community, like bringing a device into the family, but it's a family device. It doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to, you know, Brenda and God and the children. It just belongs to all of us. And it has to go away. Yeah. And it goes on a shelf and on a night. So that, because even that, you know, I remember a couple of years ago babysitting, hopefully they won't watch this, for my cousin, and his 3-year-old, I said, right, I brought some books for story. And he said, oh no, we meditate. And I thought, okay. And so he put this app on my phone, which was like something I can't remember. It was like a children's app. And I had to lay on the floor, and she was laid in the bed, and we put on this meditation, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is awful. And in the end, it just made me laugh, because this is the human aspect will never go away. Because the 3-year-old leant over the bed and she went, Sinead, are you bored? I am. We just stopped, and I got my books out and we read a story, and it was much more connected and joyful. And then when the story was done, she laid down and she said, I don't want to go to sleep, like every child does. Yeah. And then I went out, and 2 minutes later she was asleep. But I think, you know, if we don't start to be more connected to each other and to children, we're missing out on so much.
Yeah. I think it's also happening because, like I was saying before, there is a difference, and also the studies are mentioning this. There is a difference between this generation and the previous ones.
Huge.
Meaning, and they are saying that this generation actually creates the reality, is the one that takes ownership and is very different. It's the generation that won't accept no, don't do that, or phrases which will limit, and actually they are not the one in a position to respond. They are in the position to create what resonates with their soul and with their interests. And it's quite difficult to parent, be a parent for a child like this, because it's sometimes it's challenging, it has a lot of energy, a lot of imagination. That child wants to do a lot of things and so on. And the previous generation used to be our generation, let's put it that way. So people will believe that we are very young. So the generation that used to be well behaved, they used to be told, no, you need to sit there, and you are sitting there. You need to finish your maths, and you are finishing your maths. And you can't do this anymore with this generation. It's called the generation that actually creates its reality. So where maybe some parents are using technology because of this reason, it's not just justification.
Which is a good reason, isn't it?
But also maybe we need to find other ways, and a conscious way of educating this generation. That is different. So how will you deal with these children that are so demanding, and they want to do and create and have all sorts of interests? They're so
I wonder,
different.
I just don't see that in the classroom. I just don't see that. I see dysregulated humans, very, very young dysregulated humans. They can't concentrate. They can't listen. They want to sleep. They talk about death. If they talk about death,
really?
They talk about
so serious.
being and also. Like for me, talking about, I'm going to shoot you, I'm going to eat you, because this is what they're consuming. And if you look at those factors alone, that's trauma, childhood trauma. So are we actually traumatizing that generation? And they will lose that creativity, that ability, that the things that technology opens up. And I think that, Jonathan Haidt in his book calls for a ban on social media. He says social media, it's not technology, it's social media. And for me, I just think it's social media, but it's access to so many things that you don't need to see.
Yeah.
I don't need to see some of it. I don't listen to the news particularly because I don't need to. Years ago, you didn't know what was going on in different countries. At this time of recording, the fires in LA and in America.
Yeah.
And I found myself this morning looking. I felt on social media it was all about this, and I felt anxiety, and there's no fires, it's -7 where I live.
Yeah.
But not, and somebody might say, well, you should know those things. And okay, maybe as an adult, but as a child, I think we need to really stand together to be conscious adults about it. How do we make it work? I think we're all good at that.
Yeah. Where did we lose ourselves?
In 1995.
What happened then?
The smartphone became available. And in all of the time that I've been a teacher, 19, 20 years ago, that's when I saw the change in childhood. People started to have more televisions in their houses. Children would watch DVDs. Who remembers them? DVDs before they went to sleep.
I still have them.
And what we saw was child development become less and less. Children would come into the setting, they wouldn't be able to speak. You should be able to speak 50 words in your own language by the time you're 2. We see this as educators. We have 2-year-olds who can't speak, 3-year-olds that can't go to the toilet. We have parents, I think, who are struggle setting boundaries.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So children are unsafe online. They're unsafe all the time. A boundary for a child set by a parent makes them feel safe. And it's like, where do we go with that? There's my doom and gloom for you. Let's bring it back up.
Exactly.
Because people will be like, I'm done, she's depressed me.
So what will a conscious teacher do?
Conscious teachers, like myself, like my daughter, I would consider her definitely. We think about the problem and not in a way to expand it, but to say, okay, this is where we are. This is what's happening. My daughter teaches 7-year-olds, very, very dysregulated 7-year-olds who are in deprivation. So they have social, family, and emotional trauma, but also the trauma of device. So we talk about this together, and I think about, how do you as an adult regulate yourself? Because I think this is so important. Like for me,
so this will be one, for a conscious teacher.
Yeah, for a conscious teacher.
Know how to regulate yourself.
And then be able to teach them how to regulate themselves. My daughter has this beautiful, we had a boy a couple of years ago, he was 3, nearly 4, and he would just, if he didn't get his own way, or if you said, put your wellies on or put your shoes on, be like, ah! And he'd do this high-pitched scream. That was, that was just like, and I would look at her, she was the other teacher, and she'd say, I've got this, because she was much more regulated than me then. I didn't realise that until I taught with her. Whereas me, I'm old school, I'd be like, wait, come on, get those shoes on, sit down, get your shoes on. She was very much like, let's just leave him to regulate. And so he would be there screaming, and I'd be thinking, what? Like, and she'd be like, she'd just look at me like, and then after a while he'd look to her And she would go and she'd put a hand on his back and a hand on his diaphragm here. And she'd say, let's breathe into that now. And honestly, I was so inspired by that, because I learned as a conscious educator, there's a different way to deal with this. You don't have to say, sit down, get your shoes on. You can just say, right, let's breathe into this. And in the end, over about 3 months, he learned to do that himself without her. Yeah. And you would see him. It was kind of funny, really, but to see him sat with his hand, just breathing in. Yeah. And I think, you know, the ones today, we were talking about trauma, my daughter and I, on our phones, and because she's in England, and I was saying, try this, that I'd learned, try that. And I think that's what a conscious educator does, looks for new ways.
So that's the second aspect. Yeah, I think that children need to know that they are safe, that they can explore various feelings, and the adult that is next to them will contain that. Yeah, the adult won't respond immediately, be anger or be full of fear. So the child still needs to feel that he is supported, he's contained actually. And not to feed that feeling, but actually just to allow it.
And just jump into the parent. One thing I would say is, you cannot ever not give your child trauma, because now we have a generation.
Thank you. Can you repeat it, please?
You can never not give your child trauma. And a really famous guy called Mark Groves on Instagram had a baby recently, and he's all, you know, conscious, and he did this post, and it was about his baby. Like, he was, it's his first baby, no offense, I'm not being a lemon sucker about that, but he said, you know, he was never going to give his child trauma. And I put in the comments, I don't think this is a fair comment, because as an adult, you're never going to traumatize your child as a parent. That's the least thing you want. But the child could go to school and another child could traumatize it. Trauma isn't just about all the horrendous things. It's not just PTSD or, you know, there are gentle things that can traumatize you. You know, something you see can traumatize you. Something you hear.
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be that.
Because it's the way in which the child will process something that the child will experience, isn't it?
Yes.
So it may not be something that you say, it's the way in which the child feels about that situation or that problem. And actually you need to understand that and support the child with the mechanisms that will help him to move on, to come out of that stage and feel more in balance, if it's at that stage, at that time, or maybe later on when he will be an adult and he will pay for his own therapy. I think that was. I don't mean like you know, we should be bad teachers and bad parents. Traumatize them.
No, we don't definitely mean that.
But I think to allow ourselves to be human.
Just to breathe and say, okay, I'm doing my best. Exactly. I think that's all you can ever say.
Exactly,
you know? That's all you can ever say.
Look for the right instruments, like you were saying before, for a conscious teacher to always look how to improve the practice for the children that actually are in front of you.
My youngest son said to me about his brother, we'd had a fallout, and he said, Mum, can you sit there and say to yourself, I have done the best for him for his 25 years. And I sat for a moment and I thought about his question, because it's weird when your children ask you good questions. And I thought, yes, I actually can, hands up, say, I wasn't 100% perfect, probably even 89% perfect, maybe. But I have done my best with what I know, because they don't come with a manual that tells you this is what you should do.
Yeah. And it's the same as a teacher. However, as a teacher, you can join trainings, you can read about it, you can watch other people.
Expand your mind.
Exactly, yeah. So a conscious teacher will need to know how to regulate himself, how to look for information. Any other attributes, knowledge or behaviors of a conscious teacher?
I think a conscious teacher would do the same as what I'm recommending for a parent. Instead of at the end of the day,
next question, so
at the end of the day, going home and thinking, did I do my best today? And for example, a good example has happened to me in Romania over the past 2 days is I went into a classroom yesterday with my teacher head and thinking, I know how this is how I want this to go. And it didn't go how I wanted it to go because I had, I would say, my expectations too high of what I wanted to achieve. And the children were dysregulated and were, you know, showing me that it wasn't working. I think children are very good at that. And so I went back to my hotel here and I just thought about how can I be different tomorrow? And then when I went into, it was a different setting, but it would have been better to be with them, but to see if it worked. But I think it would have. Today I did it differently. And I did a lot of movement before I did the session. And the session was a beautiful session. And I thought to myself, a conscious educator will accept that some days it's not going to go right.
Yeah.
And then learn. And that's one of the hardest things.
Yeah. As a parent and as a teacher.
Yes.
Because
to say, okay, that didn't go how I expected. What will I do differently next time?
Yeah. Will a conscious parent or a conscious teacher give lots of choices to the children, or will, for example, what I have in mind is what you were saying earlier about trauma, that we don't want to traumatize the children so they can do whatever they want. We don't want to put limits, as parents or as teachers. You do find people like this. Will this be a conscious decision? Will this support a conscious education to not have boundaries, to not have, or that on the other hand, to have
no, I'm shaking my head. Like, no, don't do that.
Possibilities. You know, he can do whatever he wants because I know how I felt when I was restricted and when I didn't have things and so on. Would that be a conscious?
Did you know that?
Parent or
did
teacher?
You know that, or did somebody tell you that? Like, I never got a Mr. Frosty machine for Christmas. Did it affect me? No, I went on to be successful. I went, you know, and I did actually buy myself a Mr. Frosty machine, and it was disappointing, you know.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things, that especially that I see, is that children thrive both at home and at school with a consistent routine. A get-up time, a routine. It can be so boring over time, but it's so important. This is what time we're getting up. This is what time we're leaving the house. And of course, like every parent, getting them in the car, getting them singing songs all the way just to keep the peace. But then, when you hand that person over, there should be a routine at school or nursery that the child knows and expects. And a school cannot function without boundaries because there's too many children in your class. You know, my daughter is on her own every day with 30 children. And because somebody gave those children lots of choices and no boundaries, it's really difficult to function through the day with the children because they don't want to know that, because they don't have to. I think, and I have talked about this with some friends of mine who have young children, where they say, what would you like for your dinner?
Yeah.
Okay? You don't know what you want for your dinner.
Yeah.
Like, just give two choices. Do you want to have chicken? Do you want to have spaghetti? Me, I'm not that kind of parent. I'm going to just tell you. I'm like, this is what you're having. But I was born in 1972, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to give choice, just give two choices.
Yeah.
Do you? And even to the point where the little girl, my friend's little girl was 3. Her school that she was at was awful, really awful. I was saying to her, this isn't right, you know, and she said, I know, but I asked her at 3, I asked her, do you want to change schools? How does she know?
Exactly. Yeah. I feel this
actually,
danger. Yes.
it's unsafe. We're talking about that regulation. You keep giving them choices, and then I have to say, you give them choices where the adults in the home make that choice. Okay. So if you don't want to, we will go there.
Yeah.
And they go, no, I don't want to. So we don't go there. Like, really?
Yeah.
How do they get experiences?
Yeah.
How do they, do you want to go to the dinosaur museum? Or do you want to go to the farm? No.
Yeah.
And lots of children would just say no because they don't know.
Yeah, but or they are in that
Why
stage.
are we adults
you know,
with
where they will say
children
no.
if we are doing
exactly.
that?
But also about the roles. I mean, you change the role. You put your child in the parents of in the shoes of a parent, and the parent becomes the child. And I think this actually will harm a lot the child when he will be an adult, because he won't know exactly how to behave in any of the roles. You know what to expect of his child, and also what to expect as a parent. And I totally believe that is not healthy.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's a routine. And the biggest one that we haven't really touched on is in conscious parenting and teaching, and adults and children, is sleep. Yeah. Because what happens, we were talking about it today, is with my children, and I don't want to seem perfect, but this was more for my own sanity, because my husband was military, so I was on my own quite a lot.
That explains a lot.
I know, yeah.
Joking.
We would have a bedtime routine.
Yeah.
So we would have our dinner at the same time. We would then have like 30 minutes play so that I could tidy up, and then we would all go upstairs, and we would all go in the bath or the shower, and we would all go in the bedroom for a story. Then everybody would get into bed. And to be honest, then that would just give me some peace. But what I know now in this current time is that parents are working, both parents are working, pick them up from school or the daycare or the nursery or the aftercare, and then they're saying, well, we're going to have our dinner, and then the children can stay up for a bit. But you've got to remember that the human brain does not function properly without sleep.
Yeah.
And if you want your child to thrive, then go and Google how many hours sleep they need. I'm not going to say
when. Because in Romania, there is also this custom where you put the child to sleep at lunchtime, even if that child doesn't want to, because you know that they need sleep. But the child actually doesn't need that sleep at lunchtime, but may need to go to bed at 6 o'clock in the evening. So yes, you are working, you are coming from work at 6 o'clock, you want to spend time with the child, and you change the whole routine to fit your needs at the end of the day. And actually, this doesn't support the evolution of the child, does it?
No. And it's really important as well when they're going to bed that the room is dark. You know, you can have the night light because, children have fears, but technology needs to be removed from the room because, notifications popping up. I think we are distracted now as humans every 3 seconds. Our brain is distracted. And imagine that for a young child.
Yeah. Yeah, I was reading somewhere recently that we have the same attention span like a goldfish. Imagine that. Where we are now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote various things here. So, if we start to say, okay, in a role of a conscious parent or conscious teacher, the 5 tips, or the 7, because we talk about first 7. The first 7 tips would be what?
Know yourself.
Know yourself.
And that doesn't, I think that's sometimes sounds so airy-fairy, and when you listen to that for the first time, you think, know myself, I know myself, right? But in knowing yourself means, do you know as an adult when you're dysregulated? And I think what I was talking about this today when I was working is to the adults in the room, you are the role model. If you stand like this, children are just going to be like, and children know, because that's the connection. If you want to really connect, start running with them and saying, chase me, chase me. So, very young children, these are, by the way. Yeah. Is to know yourself is to know it's okay to be like this. It's okay to feel like this, but I need to do something about it. Exactly. And I think the number one key, because now in the UK, probably the same here, everybody says, my well-being, is to know how to park that till later, because we all need to work.
Yeah.
You know, I'm talking about extreme well-being. Okay, my anxiety is through the roof. I'm throwing up. I feel I can't do this. Then, okay, you need to be off sick.
Yeah.
But if you have had a little text fight with your partner, or you know, you just feel that anxiety wherever, and think, okay, do you know what? I'm feeling that, but I'm just going to take a breath. I'm going to park that till later. And then what are you doing later?
Yeah, to address it.
Yeah, that would be number one, to know yourself, not to like know yourself. Know your people. Everybody has an opinion about something now, right? When we were coming here,
Especially in Romania.
yeah, everywhere.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
because we have access to everything, you know, on the drive here, he was telling me about Trump, what Trump says. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't want to have a conversation about him because I don't care, right?
Yeah.
But and it was making me laugh because I was thinking, I'm in Romania with a man who speaks a little bit of English and he's telling me about Trump. But I don't
So
care.
you're international. You had an international experience.
International. So know yourself. 2, you say 2?
Yeah.
What would you have as number 2? Know yourself?
I think it will be important to know how to connect with parents and with other professionals and also with teachers, with children. I think it's still important to connect and to know how to connect nowadays.
And to accept that everyone is human.
Yes.
A teacher is a human, a dentist is a human, a doctor is a human.
Yeah.
Work on your connection
Yeah.
with other humans.
Yeah.
3, physical exercise, 100%. I hate physical exercise in the sense of going to a gym. And now I'm older, I know that I have to strength train, but my trainer is so funny because he's like, do 5 press-ups, and I'm like, oh, you know, he's like, don't be ridiculous. And I don't mean physical exercise as in that.
Yeah.
I mean it as in move your body. You know, whether that's dancing, whether that's going for a walk, whether that's, you know, I think that's one of the most liberating things that you can learn to do. Like I don't like the gym or anything like that, but I love going for walks. I love, you know, even just 15 minutes around the block really fast, it clears your mind. And I think that's conscious.
Yeah. And then it's balance. Yeah, to have balance in your professional life, in your personal life.
So
to try
hard.
to, it's very hard. But I think there are two, it's dangerous to think that you will never get it and to abandon, you know, and to go one way or the other, very much into work or give up everything and live a life where you don't accept responsibilities and so on. To accept that you are human, and actually it will be a negotiation all your life between the two areas. But I think it's important to address both of them.
Yeah, because it comes back to balance. It comes back to know yourself.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to something today about balance and overproductivity and overproductivity is a symptom of trauma, and also burnout. We talk about burnout, but actually burnout is pain, is unresolved pain in your body.
Yeah.
So that knowing yourself and knowing that you need balance, we all know that. But then I think that just comes down to once a month, looking at your life and saying which area of my life, and you can message. There's like 8 areas of your life. I look at 8 areas of my life and I think which one is not getting which 4 you know, aren't your health, your finance, your relationships, your spirituality, and then correct it. So what are we up to now? 4, 5?
We have 4. The 5, I would say, to heal yourself, because you are saying about knowing yourself. So to know what your needs are, and the fact that you had various situations in your past, and to know how to heal those aspects that are not resolved, that are
and
even
not
now
just on
unresolved.
TikTok.
Not on TikTok.
You know, because, you know, I have friends who have breakups, and then I say, I think you need to go to therapy. And she's like, I've therapied myself on TikTok, right? That's not what we're talking about.
Also,
I think,
if we talk about conscious.
Yeah, I think and I think accepting that healing is a continuous journey. But I think if you follow the other four, you're going to pretty much get healed at some point or have a healing. Yeah.
Why I'm saying this, because for sure you also experienced, back in the days, the education was different. And the way in which you were told off, or teachers or parents, if you were naughty.
Yeah.
Definitely the techniques were different. And if you are kept, if we remained in that anger or in that feeling, I think we would have been poor parents and poor teachers,
And do you know as well, like for me, I was always told at school to stop talking. Be quiet, you're always talking. And in reports said she talks all the time. And I'm a speaker for a living. I speak internationally. And my second daughter, she talks a lot. And in her secondary school, high school, I went and the science teacher said, well, she is clever, but she talks all of the time. And I tell her, you need to stop talking and start working. And I said to him, not really a good thing to tell a child whose mother is a speaker for a living and probably earns more than you. Right? And he was like, but this is the point. It's changed. Deal with that. And I think that's how I think I am being more tolerant now as an older person, because I look at people and I think everybody has trauma, carries trauma. When we were driving here, I was watching Romanian people walking around, and it's the same in England, it's the same everywhere that you go. People are so heavy, So number 6 has to be have some fun.
We had 6 and now it's 7.
Okay, 7 has to be have some fun.
Yeah.
Because
I like that.
I watch really good educators become so serious about what they're doing that they forget that these are children and every single second of their life counts with you, however long that is. Could be a year, could be 2 years, could be 3 years.
Yeah.
And today in the nursery, some children had switched classes because they were 4. And the teachers of the 3 were blowing kisses to them up the stairs, and the children, I love you. And I just thought that is such a beautiful moment that they had grown them and they were off flying, going up, and they were walking like, we're big, at 4. And I thought that was lovely. And I think we forget life is better when it's joyful.
Yeah. Most of my life I was serious. However, I also had my moments of tantrum and other things. But what I love about teaching is that I can leave that serious hat off, and when I am with babies, I can actually enjoy myself at that age in every way, and every way is accepted, with all that pleasure or that openness and all the curiosity and all the funs, and this is what I love the most. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And every day is, if you live in a house where there is no joy, then bring the joy. If you work somewhere where there's no joy, bring the joy. And there's so many ways. You just by being kind to other humans, then that's the connection that you have by doing that. And I think that definitely has to be number 7.
Yeah. And the last question before I'll invite you to tell people where they can find you. For me, conscious teaching or a conscious teacher, educator, is also a person that leaves legacy or leaves something behind. What is your legacy? What
glitter.
What do you want the people to remember it for?
always making a mess. I think anybody who's ever worked with me would probably say she's so messy because I allow the children to be so messy, you know. For me, in my legacy, I don't really have a passion for that because I think when you die, and you know. But
people remember you for various things, or you leave something behind.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think for me now, my mission is to empower adults, parents, teachers, and adults in general to save childhood. And for me, my life work really of 20 years now, and maybe if I get to 80, if I'm fortunate, then I can say my life's work. But I feel like 20 years is getting there. Has been a journey leading up to this point. And I think that all of my techniques that I have designed from a pure passion basis to, as I've seen changes in the society, in the childhood, I've worked so hard, probably sacrificed some of my own children's time to find solutions to help to help children and to help their development. And I am really fortunate because one of them, Door Disco, is done in 52 different countries around the world. So I kind of passed that off because. But I think that all of my journey is leading to creating adults who are going to champion childhood, because I think that is where I think we've woken up in 2024 and thought, wow, now we've got to do something. We've given technology all over, and now we've got to do. So my legacy is one of the most beautiful things that can ever happen as a teacher to me is that a child you taught grew up. And all of a sudden, I'm dancing in a nightclub, and a man, now he is, comes over and he says, "Mrs. Basson!" And I'm like, and he was in a reception class there in 2004, and now he's like 20, and he's in a nightclub, and he's. You were the best. And it wasn't that. He told me a story of something that he remembered. And I've had that so many times now when I first started teaching at 18, I always wanted to be the teacher that they remembered the fun bits. Because, you know, you can learn the periodic table of chemicals, you can learn your times tables, but the teacher that connects with you, that you know, really believes in you and wants the best for you, that I think they're the teachers you remember the most.
Connection again. So where can the parents and the teachers, where they can find you?
You can find me I am on Instagram at spread_the_happiness underscores. How many underscores? We are Shanette Spread the Happiness on Facebook, and our YouTube channel is called Spread the Happiness TV, where you will find lots of things that you can do with your children, but also informative videos about lots of what we've talked about that you can share with other adults as well. Let's change the world!
Thank you. Thank you so much for this. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I feel so connected with you in so many ways. Even the papers are flying away,
off like confetti.
Everything, yes.
Yeah.
Happy papers, happy people, happy teachers, happy parents.
Thank you. And I love your mission.
And I love you. And I love our mission to save the
our
childhood.
mission. Yes.
Thank you.
Definitely.
That's it. Acesta a fost primul episod. This was the first episode, so thank you all for watching and see you next time. La final aș dori să spun încă o dată mulțumesc sponsorului nostru din această ediție, celor de la Noarc Electric, care construiesc nu doar proiecte, ci dau viață și visurilor.